Greetings, everyone. This is Umby, and we're back with week number 5 of the VGC Draft League, where we're up against Vic this time around. Now, this is the person I mentioned. They picked some of the same things in the draft that I intended to pick. Of course, the Tornadus Urshifu are a hot commodity, so didn't necessarily expect to get that one off the bat. But in consecutive turns, they also picked Inteleon, who's going to be my water Pokemon pick for Tier 4, and also Umbreon, which I wasn't necessarily aiming for, but it's my namesake. Kind of want the mascots on the team, you know. So yeah, I've got it out for them, and I kind of want to make sure that I won this particular battle. And it's actually going to be tougher than it seems at first glance. Like the Tornadus Urshifu, we can address with Salamence and Rillaboom. That's not particularly a problem. What comes behind it, though, are things like the Arcanine, the Mimikyu, and the Orthworm. Those are going to be a little bit harder to address. Just naturally, Arcanine puts a lot of threat onto the Salamence with strong head smashes that could come out, kind of forcing me to Terra. I don't necessarily have a really good Terra that both resist the head smash and resist the Urshifu at the same time, so that kind of puts me into a little bit of a pinch. I'm gonna have to make it really bulky and use kind of a neutral Terra in order to sustain versus that. Because it's really important that Salamence is in position versus both of those Pokemon just for the Intimidate to kind of slow down their attack stat. But also we have to deal with the Orthworm. And across the board, it's really hard for my team to touch that Pokemon. From the physical side, I don't have any stab fighting type moves that I can really use to cut through it. It's already got a really high physical defense. So hitting it neutrally is going to do next to nothing. If I'm using something like Drain Punch or Brick Break, those are low powered moves, so those aren't going to tear through it all that well either. I have to rely a lot on Heatran to use Heat Wave, take advantage of its high special attack stat, to take advantage of Orthworm's lower special defense stat, and that requires it surviving through the onslaught of things like Urshifu and Arcanine. So I have to be really careful and position particularly Heatran in the right way in order to overcome this matchup, and this is the plan to do it. Like I said, bulk and sustain. You can even see the Heatran, pretty much everybody is invested into bulk rather than offense. Outside of the Sandy Shocks, just running a max speed, max special attack, timid nature. It's still booster energy special attack this time, and that's just going to kind of blow through. If I get the jump onto the Tornadus, perhaps it's not running Covert Cloak or Terra Ghost, I can fake out, get rid of it quite easily, and anything else coming along takes major damage along the way. Even if it goes like a neutral Terra, it has to run like a bulky Tornadus in order to survive the Sandy Shocks, even with like Terra Electric in tow. Also, the good thing about having a neutral Terra like Electric, Sandy Shocks actually survives the Surging Strikes from Jolly Mystic Water Urshifu. So I'm comfortable just taking a hit, firing right back, and getting rid of like those two kind of priority Pokemon there. But everyone else, they're just spec'd out to live a hit and fire one right back. The Heatran with the bold nature, max HP, max defense, just taking a note from Sword and Shield generation Volcarona. At one point, they were using max defense, bold Rage Powder. For versus the Rapid Strike Urshifu, that would allow it to survive the hit, recover a little bit from the Citrus Berry. Could have even run something like Flame Body to threaten a burn there, but I want to make sure I prioritize the Arcanine, nullifying its Flare Blitz in the event that I needed to kind of to help protect the Rillaboom. The Iron Thorns has kind of a quirky little set there. You see it with the Grassy Seed. The idea there, again, we're just bulking up on the physically defensive side, while tossing out a lot of coverage moves. Protect 3 attacks, worked well last time. Figured I could use it again, just with a lot more defense this time around with Terra Water, so I don't immediately die to the Urshifu. Rillaboom, business as usual, still running the Assault Vest just to fend off against the Bleak Wind Storms a little bit better, but running Drain Punch, just so it's not completely helpless versus Orthworm and Umbreon, which could also be a potential threat. It's not going to do the most damage to them, but I just want to make sure that it can hit them for significant damage to double up with another Pokemon perhaps and clear the board. Salamence with the Rocky Helmet, talked about this is kind of an Urshifu check. Unless they're running Ice Punch, they don't really have a way to clear it out the way, and if we find out they do early on in the match, you can always rely on Terra Poison, start setting up things like Dragon Dance, and potentially run away with the game. So a quick Fake Out plus Dragon Dance to do a lot of damage. Then we're running dual Wing Beat. I would prefer using something like Terra Blast or Aerial Ace really, but I want to get around the disguise on the Mimikyu if they decide to bring it along. So the first hit will hit the disguise, and the second hit will get some damage into the Mimikyu, which I think would be pretty valuable. Then last but not least, the Vaporeon, the Covert Cloak. Normally it's running leftovers, just so it has some sustain, but decided I wanted to rely on the grassy terrain for that sustain, so I could run the Covert Cloak just in case Umbreon does come along, and start spamming Snarl over the place. I do want this just spamming Muddy Water as much as it can, hopefully getting up an Acid Armor. I think the team will have a tough time getting through a max defense Vaporeon with some defense boost there. That I can just freely spam Muddy Water. It'll probably hit everything for neutral. Anything that it can't hit for neutral will just eventually go down while not being able to do any damage back at that point. And in lieu of leftovers, running Wish Protect so that we can keep that HP pool as stacked as possible. So yeah, that was the game plan. Here are the battles. So my opponent did decide to bring the Slaking Medicham combo, so there's potential of things like a skill swap the Pure Power onto the Slaking to get rid of its Truant ability and take advantage of its amazing attack stat that we got to be careful of, but we are mindful of. But other than that, it's business as usual. We've got Tornadus, Urshifu, Orthworm, Hisui, and Arcanine. So we've kind of plotted out a route for those, and fortunately enough, no Mimikyu and no Umbreon, so no need to overextend. We're going to start things off in game number 1. They're going with the tried and true combo of Tornadus Arcanine. If you're not feeling the Urshifu or want to hide in the back, that's definitely a good start here, and one thing that we said we need to be wary on with this particular matchup. But no Intimidate to be found here, so just the typical Rockhead. Go for a Fake Out into the Arcanine because I'm not too worried about dealing with that right now. Eventually the Heatran will do so. I just want to get rid of this Tornadus as soon as possible, so we're going to go ahead and chip it down with the Heatran from with the Heat Wave. This also covers if they want to use something like Terra Grass, for example, if they're predicting like an Earth Power into that slot. But again, we'll get to it eventually. But Liquid Storm coming out, Heatran resists it, takes a head smash as well. We take it pretty well, just under 30%. Activates the Citrus Berry, so we're still right back up at high health. A little bit of help thanks from the Salamence's Intimidate ability to lower the Arcanine's attack. Still chipping away at the Tornadus, just as we're planning. Alright, taunt coming out from the Tornadus, probably expecting a Tailwind from the Salamence, just finds the Vaporeon instead. See a head smash from the Arcanine, Vaporeon taking that pretty well as well. Still needed some help from that Intimidate. Now the Heat Wave from Heatran unfortunately misses the Tornadus, so gets another turn to wreak havoc here before it kicks the bucket. Arcanine switching out for Urshifu though, just so we can take the Muddy Water and Heat Wave a lot better. Alright, does a good chunk of damage with the Bleak Wind Storm though. Critical hit was unfortunate. Muddy Water finally gonna knock out the Tornadus, misses the Urshifu, but not too worried about that. Heatran though, with the Heat Wave showing does pretty significant damage, uninvested into a resisted hit on the Urshifu, which is pretty gnarly there. Arcanine coming back in, so we're going to switch our Salamence back in. Again, goes slow it down, cut that attack stack down, and give Heatran some breathing room here, especially as we're going to go into Terra Grass, just in case the Surging Strikes was headed that way. Alright, but Surging Strikes headed for the Salamence though, fails to knock it out, and crucially enough goes down pretty low thanks to the Rocky Helmet. It gets finished off by the Terra Blast Grass from Heatran. Meanwhile, Arcanine, the head smash again, still not enough to get like KO on the Heatran. We're surviving that pretty well, and the final Pokemon on the field to deal with this is the Orthworm, who, that's the reason that we were trying to save the Heatran in the first place, was just for the scenario. Orthworm showing the substitute here, while the Heatran goes for the Earth Power. Tried to knock out the Arcanine as quick as I possibly can. It might be an Assault Vest here. We didn't get to scout out which item it was, but we finally found the use for a Brick Break on the Salamence, and it was to destroy the substitute on the Orthworm in order to set up for this Heat Wave that's coming out from the Heatran to knock it out. Meanwhile, the Arcanine did fall to the Rocky Helmet on the Salamence though, so that item showing high value in this match already, and leading us into game number 2. Alright, this time we both decided to switch things up just a little bit. Slaking and Medicham coming out, so again, we've planned around this and we're wary of it. We got Salamence and Rillaboom coming this time. Figured that most of their threats are physically offensive, so I can just slap the Salamence on early just to cut down that attack stat. I go for the fake out into the Medicham to stop it from doing anything like skill swap, but they fake out into me instead, cause me to flinch. But that allows me to set up a Dragon Dance, so we can get some high value out these next couple of turns, especially if we destroy the Medicham while the Truant ability is active on Psyking. Unfortunately though, the dual wing we launched misses Medicham and they get this skill swap anyway, adding insult to injury. Body Slam critical hits, which I'm pretty sure is relevant. Didn't do the calcs, but I know my Salamence is bulky enough that it should have survived. Drum beating just to follow up in case it missed on the Medicham. Could have gone into the Slacking slot, but I just wanted to cover all bases there. Vaporeon coming in though, and with Truant, Medicham's unable to move this turn, which is crucial enough for me because Vaporeon gets to survive that Body Slam, launch off its own Muddy Water, which will clear both Pokemon off the field shortly after Rillaboom uses its Drum Beating to slow down the Psyking. Alright, so we lost a lot of momentum with that turn, but was able to gain it back in one swoop, thanks to that Truant ability and that bulk investment on the Vaporeon here, leaving once again Arcanine and Orthworm to clean things up. For safety, just going to tear the Rillaboom here in case the Flare Blitz is aimed for it, but instead they decide to go for the extreme speed to get rid of the Vaporeon. So now we're down to a 2 versus 2. However, our champion has been hiding in the back waiting for this moment, and it's Heatran. Able to clear the Orthworm in a single bound. It's going to launch this Heat Wave while the Rillaboom uses Drain Punch, just again to account for any numbers since the Heatran isn't invested into special attack at all. But Orthworm's low special defense is also a factor too, so may have cleared just fine without any additional help. But still kind of a checkmate situation as the Arcanine takes a Drum Beating for the final bit of his health, and that is the end of the game. Clean 2-0 for this week. Get games to my opponent Vic. Again, I think like we kind of had somewhat of an advantage of this matchup through Rillaboom and Salamence, just addressing some of the main threats here. Arcanine could be a little bit scary depending on what kind of moveset it was running, so it was always just this relevant threat. But fortunately enough, things like Mimikyu didn't come along to slow us down. The Umbreon coming in could have been an important factor, even if it's not resisting anything. Again, it's just a really bulky Pokemon that could take advantage of my high attack stats and also slow down my special attackers through Snarl, which would have been pretty detrimental to me considering I didn't invest a lot into offense. But fortunately, we were able to play to our advantages and get out just fine. Either way, that was an enjoyable battle, and that's it for me this week. I would appreciate it if you leave a like and a comment, and I will see you in the next video for week number 6. Take care.